At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Final hour, 9 to noon. As you heard last segment, PA is departing. Police escort down to the airport. Take a plane down to Indianapolis. In studio to kick off the final hour. And joining us weekly 9 to noon, thanks to Allery's Bar and Barbecue. You got wild shuttles, you got parking, you got all kinds of cool bits, and a feast at Allery's and good beverages. Allery's Bar and Barbecue, Lavelle Neal III at Lavelle Neal via X. How you doing, Lavelle?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Well, I'm fantastic because it's Combine Week, Lavelle. You get excited for the Combine? I mean, long time covering the Twins, but you know what happens down there. It's all the drills, it's all the steam rolling and all of that. You get excited for that kind of stuff? I mean, there's no MLB owners meetings, the hot stove and all of that, but the Combine presents its own talkers, right?
Yeah, it does. But, the NFL offseason just started. And during my beat writing days, I would kind of get on the iHeartMedia app and listen while I'm in Florida, listen to what's going on up here. And it's just football this, football that. And I'm thinking baseball season is just less than 6 weeks away. All right. It's sunny down here. People equate baseball season starting with the return of spring. I don't hear the hype. I hear about, can we find depth on the offensive line? How about a second running back to pair with Aaron Jones? Do we need a slot receiver? What about depth on the edge? And I'm like, what about how the Twins rotation is going to look like? How about how the bullpen's going to look like?
Okay.
How about let's get Correa, Buxton, and Royce Lewis through training camp without disastrous injuries? Let's talk ball.
So your frustration is twofold here. The first thing is that normally when we're talking about the Combine, and you mentioned it, you're right, offensive line, running back to pair with Aaron Jones. I think the Sam Darnold conversation's kind of going to figure itself out, D-line, et cetera. What you're mad about is that this usually you're hearing these things from Florida. You are not in Florida yet.
No, I'm not.
So that's a point of contention.
I can bring some other points of contention. All right. What's it worth to watch these things? What do you get out of it? Shedeur Sanders isn't going to perform. He's going to just meet with teams. There's always a handful, a growing list of players who do that crap every year at the Combine.
When they go to their pro day.
Yeah, and then you have to wait till their pro day, which ends up being fraudulent because Jalen Carter looked horrible at his, and that led to him dropping in the draft, and the Eagles pick him up, and the rest is history.
Well, you got people hand time in the 40s. It's a comfortable environment. You get to throw to your boys. I mean, the whole thing. If you and the film still stands tallest, doesn't it, Lavelle?
It does. And then, I've tried to watch it, and it's just not a turn on. Waiting for some lineman from Northwestern Oklahoma Tech to run his 40 time.
Yeah.
Everybody's, I know everybody's obsessing over. Let's see if we can find a hidden gem based on the Combine. Does the fastest receiver in the Combine end up being a stud? No. Does the strongest lineman in the Combine end up being a stud? Not guaranteed. So, no, I mean, it's at the most I'll have it on as background noise while I'm doing regular work. Working on some other bits, but it's something I can't get riveted on.
I understand that, but in the same sense, I think there are a lot of Vikings fans, Lavelle, that would say, all right, well, I'm going to watch the Combine. I'm going to watch a bunch of dudes in spandex running 3-cone drills and not necessarily sure what a great time is, but I know that a lower time means better. But I'm going to get names for the draft. There are some people out there that are going, hey, it's super cool that I heard Zebby Matthews has added some velocity to his game, but how is that actually going to translate to 162 games?
And that's when you go to StarTribune.com and you read the reports on people like Zebby and David Festa, who's actually added a sinking fastball.
Festa?
Yes, to go with his arsenal. So he's got two different types of fastballs to go with the slider and the change. That was written a few days ago by our elite reporting staff, the talented writing duo of Phil Miller and Bobby Nightingale Jr. So yeah, and that's stuff that people eat up at this time of year.
I know. You're bored with the combine. I get it. Now, one last thing on football, because I do want to talk about the baseball team, and you're going to be down there in about 10, 12 days. Bears at 10. So earlier today, Lavelle, we were doing the dirty 30. 30 teams don't make the Super Bowl, so we look at draft needs, and we talked about the Packers and Texans, who bookend the Vikings at 23 and 25 in the draft. The Bears are at 10.
Mm-hmm.
Quick twitch. Obviously, the draft is a long ways away. What do you think they're going to do?
Well, God, I mentioned this when I filled in for Burrow last week. The Bears and the Vikings are going to go be after the same players during the offseason, and that's interior offensive linemen for sure. So, not sure. I expect them to draft a lineman, an offensive lineman, with the 10th overall pick. They can use two guards and a center, and I guess if the situation falls right, maybe a left tackle to replace Braxton Jones, but Braxton isn't horrible at left tackle. He's functional. But if an upgrade presents itself, maybe the Bears would look there.
Okay.
But I would expect for them to draft a guard at least. Although they're going to have a lot of financial muscle under the cap. So, Smith with the Chiefs will be, an interesting guy. I know the Vikings mentioned him. Dahlman, the center, is probably going to settle in right behind Creed Humphrey as the second highest paid center in the NFL.
Wow.
Both the Bears and Vikings will be looking into him, but I still expect the Bears to draft, I'm guessing leaning now offensive guard.
Okay. I like that. To the baseball team, there was some news on Friday. Lavelle. I've asked you every time you're in here, what's going on with the ownership thing? Is it affecting festivities down in Fort Myers? They might whittle it down to a name or two by opening day. These things take longer than expected. So pen to paper to dotted line to handing the keys, and they got to change all the locks at Target Field. It's a process. This Ishbia thing. What about Justin Ishbia pulling out? News on Friday. I think it was Friday afternoon.
It was Friday.
And the news that he's pulling out of his interest in the Minnesota Twins, and he's going to focus his efforts, I don't know why, on the Chicago White Sox. What's going on with the ownership search?
Funny, I talked to Phil Miller about that Saturday while I was having breakfast. I was like, what the heck happened here? And he said, well, I could have predicted this a month ago. Once it was learned that the Ishbias own a small stake of the White Sox, why wouldn't they buy the White Sox instead of the Twins? Jerry Reinsdorf turns 89 tomorrow. He's no spring chicken. The Ishbias have business headquarters in Chicago, so they're already entrenched there. I can't remember when the report was out, but 4 or 5, 6 months ago, there was a report that Reinsdorf told his family, keep the Bulls, but sell the White Sox if something happens to me. So I think they started walking toward that process a couple of days ago when I guess Reinsdorf's going to let the Ishbias start buying out some other minority owners and gain a larger stake in the White Sox. So Phil Miller believed that that it was inevitable. And the other thing, too, once it was learned that the Ishbias owned a piece of the White Sox fans were like, well, don't buy the Twins, buy the White Sox.
Right.
Please save us from the wrath of Reinsdorf. So,
well, and the conversation there early on was that the Ishbias are interested in the Twins, that they would have to sell their stake in the White Sox first, right?
Yeah, but that wouldn't be an issue. All those people in Chicago,
they can find somebody to buy it.
Absolutely. Wait till the Bears go for sale. See how many people line up for that team.
Now, with that said, because there are probably, as you mentioned, White Sox have had their struggles. Reinsdorf, polarizing figure in Chicago, I would imagine, both with the Bulls and the White Sox. White Sox fans can't wait for a new owner. Well, Twins fans have been doing this for 4 or 5 months, Lavelle. Ever since the news came out that they were potentially putting it on the market, it was a foregone conclusion. There was almost a celebration. People have marked it on their calendar that by the time the 4th of July comes around, they want to have a new owner for the Minnesota Twins. We just saw it with the Wolves in terms of, A-Rod and Laurie. Now they're in the mix. Oh, wait a minute. Are they? Glenn Taylor's having second thoughts. It goes to arbitration. So how mad can Twins fans be about this process here?
Well, I thought the celebration when the Twins went were announced as exploring a deal to sell the franchise was slightly excessive. People were happy, but you don't know how this is going to turn out. The ownership regime changes take several months, if not a year, from identifying the right people to having those right people prove that they have the money, other background checks and things like that. Meeting with the league honchos, getting approval from them. It's a long process, man. The stuff just doesn't take place in a month, especially when you're talking about billion-dollar entities. So it was going to take time. The Ishbias were the only known interested party in the Twins, so everybody got fixated on them, especially we can go online and hit the Google machine and find out that combined they're worth $14 billion. So you're like, all right, this is what we want. This is what we need. Yeah. His brother has spent lavishly on the Phoenix Suns, although they're at critical mass now with their roster.
They are indeed.
Plus, I tried to warn people, hey, you better watch out because once the books are open up, some people may look at the books and go, oh, now I know why the Twins' payroll was only $135 million last year. So you don't know. So you got to be patient. This is not over by any stretch of the imagination. There was multiple interested parties, and it's just one interested party. Yes, I can guarantee you.
Okay. Because I think that's the worry now. I thought, and there was an article over the weekend, the idea that they may, and who knows, they could pull them off the market for a month. But the idea of the poll ad just going, now we got to wait on this. Maybe 2026, maybe 2027, maybe indefinitely. We're just with this thing until we find the right dollar amount. Twins fans were elated, and now I think they're all pissed off again.
I don't know if pissed off is the way they should be. They should be a little nervous because now you just don't know. It's kind of like a little bit of a soap opera now. You don't know how things are going to turn out and who's going to emerge as the person to replace the Ishbia as the known suitor for the franchise. I've read that and I was like, well, that's the first time we've heard something about the Twins being pulled off the market. I just don't see how they could turn back after getting this far down the road and seeing how that announcement was accepted by the community. So I still think there's going to be a transaction made this year. It may not be as soon as everybody wants it, but I think there's going to be a transaction.
And until then, we're worried about Zebby Matthews.
Well, just focus on spring training. The Twins lost to the Pittsburgh Pirates 5-1 yesterday. They play the Tampa Bay Rays today. I'm not sitting here trying to get you guys to spend $99, but you could start watching these spring training games if you sign up for Twins TV. I had my laptop going yesterday, watching the game on my laptop. So, checking out, David Festa actually started yesterday. So, saw some other bits here and there. So, saw sun-splashed field in Florida and wake up this morning and see a sun-splashed brown field down throughout the Twin Cities as I drove here.
How functional is the TV bit? Because if you're talking about opening the books and here's why payroll might be what it is, I mean, the TV conversation over the last half dozen years plays into it. And so in terms of $100, that's not going to get the revenue of a nicer TV deal. But for $100 as a Twins fan, at least getting good functionality and the ability to watch their favorite games.
Well, during spring training, if the Twins are on the road and if this available, you'll get the feed from the other team. So yesterday it was the Pittsburgh Pirates feed, which was kind of a bummer because Pittsburgh players would come out of the game and they'd walk over to this little table and the sideline reporter or the Robbie Ismakowski of Pittsburgh now would sit there and interview players who just left the game while the game's going on. So you were getting more of a Pittsburgh centric broadcast. Steve Blass showed up and sat in the booth for 2 hours. So they were celebrating Steve Blass and things like that. But it's going to be interesting, Nordo, because the Twins pointed out that now that the five-state region has that they could impact 4.4 million baseball fans. If you got 500,000 subscriptions, that'd be right at $49 million, which would be close to the 58 that they had a couple years ago before their previous carrier filed for bankruptcy.
Right.
Can they get more than that? I mean, I actually did an informal poll of some friends over the weekend, They're like, no, I'll just come to the bar and watch it. So how much does the bar got to pay for it? And will they pay for it? So those things have to be worked through.
Is 500,000 a legitimate number?
I just said if they could get 500,000 subscribers.
Well, no, I know you said if. I'm not challenging you there. I'm just curious. Yes, if they got is that a real number? Because I remember reading something. Arizona did this, and they ended up maybe somewhere between 80 and 100,000 subscribers. Now is Twins fans as a fan base more regionalized, and those that live in surrounding states that have to clamor for watching options in the first place. That might be easy new customers. There will be a drop-off and all of that.
There may be some fan apathy, too.
I think there will be some fan apathy. So I'm just like 500,000, that just sounds like a ton of people where effectively in the metro, what is that? That's 1 in 5, 1 in 6 will have a subscription in the metro, and obviously this will be more expanded state and regionally. But that's a huge number for them to try to maintain.
This would be a referendum of if Twins territory really exists, to see if the people who are in North or South Dakota or in Iowa who may go to 1 or 2 games all year may want to tune in to watch the Twins, have access to Twins streaming all year long. This is actually a good test to see how loyal, how strong, and how passionate this region is when it comes to Major League Baseball. So I think the Twins would be happy they've got 100,000, but I would just point out it would take 500,000 subscriptions for them to get to 50 million, or roughly 50 million, which would be close to what they were getting a few years ago. I'm not saying it's a slam dunk they're going to get that many, but I would suspect the Twins would be happy if they got into 6 figures.
And it will be stream only, right?
I believe so, yes.
Wow.
Now I'm an MLB TV package person anyway, so I already kind of get
I get you
access to all that. So
I'm just curious.
And I don't know if this is going to make people sign up for MLB now. Well, I might as well, for another $50, I could just watch everybody.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know what it takes. Like I know MLS, like Major League Soccer with Apple TV, is kind of an all in, all out. It feels like for me, and the idea if I'm truly into a sport, I want to buy something that has the ability to watch them all. But I just think there's something about this that's missing the mark to me in my head, where you still have regional TV networks in some areas. You have the streaming options here. Like there's just no cohesion on that. That can't be good for the league.
Right. But weren't the Twins? I got to double check this too, and I may be wrong. I don't want to misspeak, but I think weren't they trying to have like a channel to put Twins games on somewhere in the metropolitan area?
I may have read something.
I don't know how that's going to work.
Something localized.
So, I mean, the cool thing is
they can be on 45 TV, get bumped for state high school hockey tournaments, but they'd have that option. I don't know if they could get 40 or 50 million for 45 TV though. Wouldn't that be the problem?
It's a community access bit where instead of watching the fifth replay of the Mendota Heights City Council meeting, you could watch.
It's good to know what's happening over there. The Mendota Heights Mafia is active.
It's Charlie Walters territory.
Let's pause. When we come back, kind of a potpourri of bits that I have for you, including the Pinstripes making a big decision about the culture of the Yankees clubhouse and the culture of being kempt, well kempt. Not as much, maybe moving forward. Lavelle Neal III is in studio weekly thanks to Allery's Bar and Barbecue on West 7th there. You got parking, you got wild shuttles. It's an absolute blast. And Lavelle's an institution there. There's no doubt about it. More with Lavelle around the corner.
I'll be there tomorrow before the Wild game.
There you go. Go see Lavelle and ask him if he has his book. He carries at least 10 to 15 copies in the trunk of his car. More with Wobble next.
Man.
Watch the Wolves game last night, Lavelle?
Yeah, I watched most of it. Had some other stuff going on, but I had on most of the time. That third quarter things got away from the old Wolfies there. And it's hard to win when Ant's trying to find a shot. Plus Nas is shooting 33% from the field. Plus McDaniels is shooting 33% from the field. It's not gonna end well when you got three guys all shooting well below 40% for a game.
So where's your head at on this? Because I love Ant. And he is certainly being made to be the patriarch and the centerpiece of this team. So tell me that I'm overreacting when I do have some frustration when I see, because this is not an infrequent situation where Ant is trying to find his shot and Ant is settling for a bunch of threes, and sometimes Ant is driving to the hoop and not getting the call, which leads to frustrations, all of those things. And he always finds it. He always will ultimately level things out. He might have to go 8 of 22. I think he was, 8 or 9 of 30 a couple of weeks ago. I mean, just nothing was falling, and he kept firing, and he was shooting the moon, but not in a good way. The frustration I have about those slow starts, am I overreacting to that? Should I appreciate the fact that he does ultimately find his way forward? Later in the game, he was instrumental. He was getting to the line, and he was hitting buckets. But early on in particular, you look at a game like this, it feels like sometimes in a 4-quarter game, you can lose it early. Kind of felt like the Wolves did.
Now, there's a lot of Ant right now as far as keeping his team sailing in the Western Conference, a very competitive Western Conference. And he does not, right now, the Wolves do not have a reliable number 2 scorer on this team. It could be Naz Reid sometimes. It could be McDaniel sometimes. But as you saw last night, that could be fleeting as well, based on shooting percentages. I will talk about Ant's situation in terms of Michael Jordan, who I grew up watching. I always thought when Michael would have his best games, when he was going to go for 50 or even 60,
right,
the mid-range game was working early. And it seemed like he wanted to work on the mid-range game at the beginning of the games and not start from bombing threes, but trying to drive, hit some pull-up jumpers, drive to the baseline, pull up from 14, get into the paint.
Did Jordan even shoot a lot of threes throughout his career, though?
Later on, I think he did.
Yeah.
I have to go look it up to make sure. But I just remember the threes he hit in the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
So
he was clutch all over the place. The only reason I asked, and I love the analogy here, just in terms of if it's good early, it's going to be good the whole night. It's just I couldn't remember Jordan. I remember the clutch shots, but I do remember more of him shaking loose and finding his way from 12 or 14 feet. I mean,
shrugging his shoulders after hitting the number 1 in front of Magic Johnson. I can't help myself,
Freaking artwork.
But Ant, I wish Ant would do some of that. He did get to the line 10 times last night. I still think he needs to play downhill a little more and not forgetting that he should play with force.
Yeah.
But he's worked on that jumper. It's a beautiful jumper. When he's hitting it, he's outstanding. I guess I didn't know this. He's taken the most and made the most threes in the league.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was the proliferation had been that extreme.
Well, he's doing Steph Curry numbers.
Yeah, so I would like to see him get downhill early more. I think that will open up the rest of his game, or at least try to drive and hit some pull-up jumpers and play mid-range. Pretend he's DeMar DeRozan for about 10 minutes to see how that helps the other parts of his game. Although I'll tell you, Gilgeous-Alexander's mid-range game is a joy to watch. He does not need much space to get his shot off. You're going to be 2 hands in his face, and he's hitting shots on the baseline, almost behind the basket that are going in. He is a fun player to watch.
Well, and he's getting to the line. I mean, he's got to be among the leaders in free throws. I mean, he is getting every call. He's got to be shooting 12 to 14 a game. I think he had 10 or 11. They're back at it tonight. Weird scheduling bit, though, with the Wolves. And now, I mean, it's tough. No Rudy. You don't have DiVincenzo with the great toe or a big toe, the great toe in general. And Julius, it sounds like he's nearing return.
Yeah.
But just trying to hold the ship until these guys come back. And the schedule's doing them no favors. And we were talking like a cool win just before the break against OKC. Mm-hmm. But like the other night, Friday, like you got to have that win against the Rockets. You got to, like, those are the ones we're going to look back on.
Right.
And kick ourselves in the pants over, because right now it's like a game and a half stretch between being in 6 out of the play-in. I think that's where the Clippers are, and being in 10. And where I think the Sacramento Kings have crept back into the mix. So it's so tight, and the Wolves are coming up dry on a lot of these.
Yeah, and I was actually, as a sports fan, I was envious after the game, because they were talking to SGA after the game, and Chet Holmgren came over, and Lou Dort came over, and Williams came over, and they're all hugging each other while SGA is being interviewed. And that was right after the game. And then a few minutes later, I think ESPN SportsCenter switched to Chet Holmgren. Holmgren starts by talking about himself. Then SGA walks over and hugs him, and another player, and they're all putting arms around each other, supporting their teammates while they're being interviewed. I thought that was pretty cool to see.
Absolutely.
So they got some Ubuntu going on in Oklahoma City. Speaking of Oklahoma City, guess what former Twins pitcher who lives in Oklahoma City today is his birthday?
I don't know.
And he used to be Oklahoma City Thunder season ticket holder, right at courtside.
I'm going to guess Juan Rincon.
Juan Rincon in Oklahoma City. This man started game 163 for the Twins against the Chicago White Sox.
Oh, why am I blanking on that? Alexi Casilla. It was. Why am I blanking on it?
Pitched his ass off, gave up a solo homer to Tommy. I think it ended up being 1-0. Nick Blackburn.
Oh, Nick Blackburn.
Yes.
Oh, sweet. Good for him.
Yeah.
Lives in OKC.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to keep that in my pocket for the next time I go to B-Dubs and do trivia.
Yeah, just impress your friends at parties.
So I like obscure bits.
Oh, no.
I always thought it was cool that the Yankees had the facial hair bit. You're going to be clean shaven if you're going to live and work in the Empire City, and you're going to put on the pinstripes and you're going to play at Yankee Stadium, and they're undoing it. So I was listening. I think it was Sinekin. I hate to put this on him if it wasn't him, but I think it was in the zone on Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this was intentional, but there was an insinuation that the Yankees over the course of time, because of their facial hair rule, have actually lost out on free agents because people don't want to go there and shave while making a pretty fair dollar to play baseball in New York for the Yankees. What do you think about the whole thing? And is that implication true that the Yankees have lost out with their pocketbook and everything? They've lost out on big money players because of a facial hair rule.
First, I'm going to say I've always admired the Yankees for sticking to this policy because it has forced some players with some of the ugliest beards in the history of beards to go clean shaven once they join the Yankees. I think of Randy Johnson. I think of Jason Giambi. I think of Johnny Damon, who had like the mountain man hair and a big beard going on when he was with the Red Sox.
Oh, Boston, they were all freaking mountain men in Boston,
yes.
Weren't they?
Yes. I would go. I think of Jay Buhner. I think of some of the bearded wonders of the past.
Yeah. But it was nearly 50 years that this thing was in place because of the elder Steinbrenner, right?
Now, you brought up that rule. Joba Chamberlain, another bearded wonder, was on a radio show over the weekend and said he knew players who would not play for New York because of the hair policy, which amazed me because if it was a really good player and I was George Steinbrenner, I would say, all right, I'll pay you $150,000 more a year, to shave.
Yeah.
All right. We'll call it shaving clause. I'll give
Put it in the contract.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll throw in. We'll get you a Gillette billboard. We'll make a Mach 3 bid out of it and call it good.
Now, mustaches have been allowed as long as they were well kept. I mean, Nestor Cortez had a mustache the last couple of years with the Yankees, right?
I think so.
So he was allowed to pitch. Who am I thinking of? Ron Guidry had a mustache, right, when he was pitching? I believe
yes.
So. Yeah.
Yes, he did.
So some guy, as long as it was a mustache, I guess that was allowed. But
the idea of costing them big money free agents just sounds crazy to me.
Yeah. And plus, it's just hilarious that a team that Oscar Gamble actually played for would have a hair policy with that big fro. But the Twins used to have a hair policy.
Just cut to a certain length?
Oh, no beards.
No beards?
Yeah.
When did that change?
It changed, and this is a direct quote from Terry Ryan. We needed a closer, so he traded for Jeff Reardon in 1987. And that's when the hair policy went out.
And that's when absolutely everything changed, is when they absolutely needed a guy.
And then they had another policy about they had an anti-braid policy because David Ortiz used to show up at Twins Fest with braids or sometimes I would call them twisties when they weren't officially braids, but kind of just little twisties. And by the time spring training opened, he had to cut it off. So, but something happened because if you remember, Irvin Santana had the flowing dreads going whenever he pitched. So I don't know when that policy was either forgotten or just overlooked. So apparently Yankees weren't the only team or haven't been the only team that had some sort of hair policy. But
what about, because wasn't Dallas Keuchel could have gone to the Yankees at one point? Wasn't that a bit?
I would love to, because they also...
Keuchel had a massive beard.
Well, I guess the new policy says it has to be well kept. Keuchel's beard always looked rather neat. It wasn't like a ZZ Top, crazy looking thing hanging from his chin. It usually was shaped a little bit and trimmed to a certain extent. I wonder if Dallas Keuchel could pitch for the Yankees today with his beard. So...
well, we'll get to the bottom of it. Thanks for hanging out in studio today, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure.
That is Lavelle Neal III. You still got the book. It's still available. Where is it available?
Online at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. It's called Franchise, A Curated History of the Minnesota Twins. Just came off a successful holiday rush here.
Are you going to add an update with the Ishbia and all of this? Might be worth a second edition, Lavelle.
Well, if there's a new owner and the Twins happen to win the division and make a run in the postseason, maybe I could just add a chapter in the 2025 season, a year in which changed the trajectory of the franchise.
Yeah, we hit a sweet spot here. Thurman Munson, Reggie Jackson, Don Mattingly, all mustaches.
Yeah.
Getting confirmation via the KFAN text box.
Yeah.
So mustache is okay. Mm-hmm. The sweepers, the street sweepers, but no beards until now. Big changes in.
Let's see how far the Yankees players run with this one.
Wait, isn't that it? Don't you give an inch, they take a mile? I think they got. I mean, the bits are endless, right?
Well, DJ LeMahieu have a full beard now. Gleyber Torres does he want facial hair?
It's Gleyber Day. Who's the new Vox for the Yankees?
I'm not sure.
I'm not, because it's Michael K. does TV, right? Yes,
I've known Michael for like 30 years.
Yeah, and just, I mean, but Sterling, of course, replacing him. I think he came back for the playoffs when they went to the World Series. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Well, I wonder and then Susan Waldman's been doing the analysis forever.
Oh, yeah, she's a mainstay.
I just love John Sterling. That's it. The sun will come out, Tanaka. I mean, it just is big. It's awesome.
It's an A-ball from A-Rod.
It's funny, though, if you take...
Burn, baby, burn.
If you ask Yankees fans, though, a lot of them don't like it. Like, you don't know what you have. You don't know what you have. I'm here in Minnesota loving John Sterling and appreciating it. How could Yankee fans not adore John Sterling?
All rise. Here comes the judge.
Here comes the judge. Oh, it's terrific. As are you. You're going to, when are you heading to Fort Myers?
About a week from Wednesday.
All right. So in a couple of weeks, you'll be reporting from a beachside cigar bar, letting us know what's happening. That's going to be awesome for you, man.
I got to see what buildings is. There's still recovery from Hurricane Ian going on. The new beach well is under construction. And the Mucky Duck, I know a lot of people go down there and go to the Mucky Duck for dinner because the sunset off the Gulf of North America is breathtaking. But apparently the Mucky Duck's trying to make a comeback as well.
Oh, sweet. Well, I hope everything. I know. I heard some people are abandoning property down there, abandoning land, and just letting it go.
But they were told it was going to take 3 years for them to get all the permits, to get the insurance figured out. And they were like, "I'm 75, I'm out."
Yeah,
and so you have some buildings that have. I'll find out for sure when I get down there in about a week and a half. But like last when I was there were still like boarded up buildings because from the hurricane.
That's too bad. That's Lavelle Neal III at Lavelle Neal, weekly guest 9 to noon. Final segment shall be a shorty. That's next on The Fan. I can't wait until tomorrow. As I said, final segment 9 to noon is indeed a short one. It's Nordo here, PA on his way to the airport, where he's then on his way to Indianapolis. The Combine 2025 incarnation is taking place. 9 to noon shows the next couple of days will be from Indianapolis. And it's awesome because you're going to get to hear some steamrolling. I know that Pat Shurmur, former Vikings coordinator, now doing some offensive work for Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes. Extended chat with Pat Shurmur. You're going to get to hear from NFL insider, scout, personality, analyst Field Yates is going to be part of the conversation. Jordan Reed, also ESPN draft analyst, he's going to be in the mix, as well as the big timers. The big timers show up for the Combine, and that's going to be head coach Kevin O'Connell and general manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. You're going to get to hear both of those individuals and a whole bunch more. PA is going to be there. Pete Bursich is, I think, driving from Chicago to be there, along with Vikings Entertainment Network. So it's Combine Week, 9 to noon, and the next couple of shows will be absolutely Vikings football dominated. Thank you so much not only to Lavelle, you just heard him in studio during the final hour, but Pat Micheletti as well, weekly guest, 9 to noon, handling hockey, Dane Moore on the Wolves, and you're going to get to hear the Wolves, 7 p.m. tip-off right here on your home for Timberwolves basketball, The Fan, and the program is next. Have an awesome afternoon. Thanks for listening to The Fan.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.